Hi, I'm Jess.
Hi, I'm Kristen.
And this is ReDIScover, a conversation where we travel through everything that makes up the essence of who we are and how to live authentically and imaginatively.
Here, we invite you to join us as we explore and discuss a little bit of, well, everything.
From Disney to cultivating your most authentic life to deepening your relationships and talking about the real stuff.
We hope you'll find this a space that speaks to you, encourages you, and brings a little bit of magic into your day.
Hi everyone, I'm Jess.
Hi, I'm Kristen.
And welcome back to this week's episode of ReDIScover. So this week we are continuing our month of love and relationships, and we are going to dive into an episode today about the process of growth during singleness.
We felt like it was really important to include this topic in this month of talking about love and relationships because the most important relationship you can build and grow in is your relationship with yourself. And I think that that's the relationship that we tend to invest the least time and energy into because we're so busy meeting the demands of our days and showing up for the people in our lives that we forget to invest that quality time in ourselves. In singleness, we've noticed that there is a certain chronology to it that kind of begins in that initial phase where maybe you've just gone through a breakup, maybe you initiated it, maybe you were blindsided and didn't know it was coming. Either way, there's this sort of rock bottom feeling where your whole world kind of feels like it's in upheaval and you don't really know where to turn or what to do next. And so we're going to call that the rock bottom phase. You're not actually in rock bottom. We just feel like we are, right? So then the following phases from there would include that initial processing of the newfound singleness, kind of how you work through it emotionally, and then, some growth steps that you can take to basically always be on this forward path to positive growth in singleness and learning how to actually enjoy being single, and then finally ending up in this place where you feel really empowered as a single person and as a whole and complete individual. So I think a couple of things we wanted to note was that this process can be recurring because obviously in the course of most of our lives we'll go through more than one breakup, and it can look and feel different every time because the nature of the relationship and the breakup and where you are in life are all different each time. So those are a couple of things to note.
Yes, and I think it's important to note too that you learn different things every time you go through this process. You might focus more heavily on certain areas than others, depending on what you innately feel like you need to learn to progress on your life path. And also, one other note is even if you have never been in a relationship before, I think a lot of what we're going to discuss in this episode is applicable because it is always important to cultivate that inner relationship with yourself. I am currently in a stable relationship, but I did have a period of my life where I was single for 3 straight years and much more before that on and off. But leading up to this relationship, I did have a 3-year break from actually dating anyone. So I really, really dove into this process a lot during that time.
Yeah. And I am currently in probably the middle stage of this process of singleness. I am single, and I have been single on and off for many years. I have been in relationships and I've been single. And so we both have the advantage of perspective and experience. So we're going to kind of start with the rock bottom moment. You just had your heart broken, or maybe you had to make a hard call and end a relationship and it wasn't easy for you, and you may have hurt the other person. Wherever you are, this initial kind of acceptance is not easy. I think there's a lot of pressure on people who are newly single to get over it, to move on, to God forbid, rebound, to whatever you need to do to stop thinking about the other person. But I think that that's the first mistake you can make, is to not acknowledge it, not let yourself feel everything, because then this growth process has nothing to spring from. Whether that means you need to eat an entire pint of Ben & Jerry's on your couch while you watch Dirty Dancing and cry.
Wow, how Jessica Day of you.
I'm looking at you, Jessica Day. Or, maybe it means you just need to go for a run and you need to you've just got some pent up aggression and you need to get it out. Maybe you need to go on a trip because you need to get out of your environment and gain a new vantage point. That always seems to help with me. Whatever it is, you need to listen to your body and let yourself do the thing. And I know that there's a lot of stigma around like heartbroken girls sitting on the couch eating ice cream and crying with their friends. But honestly, it's not a stigma. It's a thing that we do for a reason.
Yeah. And I think the more that you can just accept doing that and just give yourself permission to do that, the more helpful it's going to be, because then you won't stay in that same position for weeks on end. It'll be, just as long as you need it. And it can be really helpful. Like we were saying earlier, when you are newly, freshly single, I feel like there is a lot more pressure to start dating right away as well. And by taking this time, you really are healing, like from the inside out. People will say things a lot more to people who are newly single than they will to people who are single for a long time. Have you noticed that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because when I was single for, a year or two or whatever, nobody really made comments. It's just like, oh, Jess is single, like, cool. And she's really independent and whatever and just does what she wants. But when I was freshly out of a relationship, it's like, why don't you go on dates? You should get on Tinder. You should get on Bumble.
Get back out there.
Get back out there. I hate the phrase get back out there.
This is not riding a horse.
Yeah, like, why can't you just get off the horse and stay off the horse for a while? Like,
it reminds me of what we said when we were talking about what we've learned from dating. If you don't take the time to learn from the relationship, then you're gonna repeat the relationship, whether it was your mistake or just kind of reconciling with the mistakes of somebody else so you can forgive them and move on. You don't need to take that with you to the next relationship if you take the time to work through it. When we were talking about kind of the chronology of all this, I was saying that for me, the worst part, and maybe this will resonate with some of you, is not the day that the breakup happens. It's actually the next morning when you wake up and you sort of are coming to consciousness and like realizing where you are and what's going on and maybe what your day entails, and you just feel like everything is different. You tend to like begin to feel overwhelmed by this sense of emptiness. So I think it's important to try to not let yourself become overwhelmed by the like, what am I going to do? What is this going to look like? You don't have to figure it out this morning. Just like get out of bed and take a shower and start doing your day, and things will sort of start to flow naturally. And then when you do feel those gaps in time where you would normally have been spending that time with your partner, be intentional and schedule other things to do. Plan to hang out with friends, or plan, an evening to yourself to do something that you really enjoy doing.
Like, even if you do painting or something artistic, or if you like doing something athletic, like dip into your hobbies. Like you were saying, that day after is really hard, and I agreed with that, but also continuing on for the next few weeks or days, weeks, months. It's different for every single person, but I noticed that one of the hardest parts for me with breakups is the thought patterns that just continue cycling in your head. And maybe not everybody experiences this, but this is something that I experienced very, very heavily, trying to analyze, where did things go wrong? What could I have done better? Why did they treat me this way? Why did I say that? And
what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
That's a really debilitating one.
So it's a very interesting portion of the breakup process. Looking at it objectively, if you're observing your thoughts, they're kind of showing you where your beliefs are stationed at that point in time. So it's definitely something to take note of, and maybe that's something you can start to work through. And, if you need to go to therapy to work through them, maybe start doing that, looking for a therapist or continuing with the one you already have. If you also want to talk to friends about it, that's really helpful. Sometimes because your friends know you, they can help you, but you do have to be careful that your friends are not projecting their own opinions and beliefs onto you. That's why it might be better to have somebody neutral, or just keep your circle small with who you talk about it with. Maybe redirect your focus more towards the future. Maybe start planning for things that are coming up, or things you want to start learning more about or getting into. And also, I think this one was really helpful for me, getting overly present and being like, okay, what is actually happening in this moment? And realizing that the thoughts that you're having that feel so real and are actually causing you anxiety are not actually happening right now. Getting grounded, taking a deep breath, and being like, oh, in this moment, I'm actually just drinking my morning coffee, and that's all I'm doing. And I'm safe. And just checking in with yourself. And even if you have to do that like 15 times a day.
The overarching piece of advice here is don't hold yourself to a timeline expectation. There is no timeline here. It's different for every relationship. It's different for every person. Sometimes you might start to feel better in a couple of weeks. Sometimes it might take a couple of years. You don't know. So try to be patient with yourself. If you tell yourself you're okay, you're reminding yourself that there's nothing to fear here. Being single is not going to create an unsafe space for you.
Mm-hmm. And that's almost like reparenting yourself.
Yeah,
too.
It really is.
Again, we've talked about this before, but having a partnership with yourself or treating yourself as your friend or talking to your inner child, however you want to look at it, like telling yourself those things really helps keep your nervous system a lot calmer.
It's like you're either feeding into the fear or you're reminding the fear of its place. Mm-hmm. So something that I noticed that I do in this stage of singleness,
and I have done before,
and I'm sure that we're not the only people who do this, is we have been blessed with some very kind friends and they're very good listeners and they're there for us, and that's amazing and we appreciate them so much. But what we can do sometimes, and if any of my friends are listening to this, they're like, yep. What we can do sometimes is sort of fall into this pattern, this habit of constantly talking about the thing, the breakup, the person, the things that went wrong, the things that we're feeling, just everything to do with this thing that's already happened.
Even if it's like, oh, they texted me today. Like, was it really worth noting? Probably not.
Block their phone number. But it just becomes this habit of bringing it up to this person, especially if that person has established themselves as a sort of confidant for you. And at first, you do need to talk about it. And if you need someone to work through it with, find a friend that, will kind of, I always say, like, sit with you in your mess, that will be there for you, not to fix anything or reconstruct anything, just to kind of be there for you while you process everything, to be a listening ear. But then once that is done, stop beating the dead horse. And yeah. I'm telling you this to tell me this. I'm saying, Kristen, stop beating the dead horse. It's dead.
Yeah.
Bury it. Be done with it. And that way you kind of reinforce this positive growth mindset where you're not constantly regressing and going back to the past. Maybe something was unsaid. Maybe you didn't get closure in the breakup, which is a huge reason that causes people to constantly bring it up, because you're almost trying to process your way to closure. That closure is not going to come from your friend who's listening to you. It's got to come from inside you.
And it's not going to come from the person you were in the relationship with either.
No.
Or the situationship.
Yes.
By talking to a friend so much about these situations, sometimes that becomes your only bonding point with that friend. And then once the situation actually goes away, you realize that the friendship you have with that person really wasn't as deep as you thought it was, and you might have just been a little bit addicted to talking about the situation. And I think it's also important to just take note, like, are you addicted to the drama and the ups and downs and the high that you kind of get when you start talking about these things? I know that I have been, for sure, because it's like a new layer of a TV show. It's the suspense. It continues going on, and it's like, wait, but this actually, if I'm being radically honest with myself, I'm getting addicted to the cycle again. As an alternative to going to this friend over and over again, when you feel stuck in that cycle, or if you're having these thought patterns within yourself, whatever the situation may be, I found that having a specified journal just for brain dumping thoughts is so cleansing. And I think one of my favorite things to do to make it a little bit more special and like separate from everything else is to have a lock on the journal, because that's going to be some of your deepest, darkest stuff. That's going to be the stuff you don't want anyone to read. You might not even want to read it yourself. But if you have this specified journal and you can just give yourself however much time, maybe set a timer for 20 minutes, do an automatic writing, don't take your pen off the paper, just get it out. You're going to cleanse a lot of the stuff that's swirling in your head. And I've noticed that if I do this sort of thing, I do this even outside of relationships when I get swirling thoughts. When I dump it out, oftentimes when I go to sleep at night, my brain is so much quieter, because I think our brains are designed to solve puzzles and to find solutions. Yeah. And when it can't find a solution to things, it just keeps chewing and chewing and chewing on it, and it never actually finds the solution. Yeah. So you almost need to give your brain something to do with the information, even if that's just writing it out.
Otherwise, you're going to get mental lockjaw. No, it's true. I like that idea of like chewing on it, because that sounds like this exhaustive, like just repetitive pattern, and then it's just going to eventually cause you to need dental work.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes like I think that my brain is wired that way for some reason.
Same. 100%.
I'm sure some of you can relate to that, but it's not about getting rid of the thoughts. It's about learning how to manage them and divert them and refocus them.
So I think once you've completed the stage of initial acceptance of the breakup, your new path as a single person, you've kind of had time to grieve it, to eat your pint of ice cream, to talk it out with a friend, to get some space from the person and the situation and everything. There comes this sort of growth period through all of that messy stuff where you're really just trying to like sift through all of the mess to find the things you can take with you. Because all that you want to take into the next stage is the good lessons and the actual applicable messaging.
There comes a point where you are going to be partially moved forward and partially still in the past. And that's when you kind of want to start asking yourself really good questions. If you can really buckle in and take it from an approach of radical self-honesty, can be really self-serving. One of the biggest ones that I ask myself is when I'm really holding on to something and I don't want to let it go, I ask myself, is this really serving me? Seeing what it's actually bringing into my life. Like a lot of times I will hold on to the last person I was dating or hold on to how things were even a year ago or something. But then I look at it, I'm like, is this serving me? And I realize that what I'm holding on to is more of the thrill of it versus actual quality that it's bringing into my life. So that could be a journal topic, that could be an internal question, but it's definitely a great question to ask yourself to bring great awareness.
I don't know, I'm getting emotional right now.
Oh.
Okay. I was like, I'm done crying.
No, we can cry the whole episode if you want.
Okay, I think part of me is like frustrated that I couldn't remember what I was saying.
That's okay.
I'm such an Enneagram 1 right now.
It's okay. I mean, too, if the emotions are coming up, like, to be going through this process,
Yeah.
I think it's also subconsciously bringing up a lot for
Yeah.
you. Which, props to Kristen for doing this episode in the midst of her season of life here. She's crying like a princess and not messing up her makeup, if anyone's wondering.
Great. Okay.
You know how people like people's morning voices.
Someone
loves crying voices.
I really don't like crying voices because they just make me feel bad. Like I want to fix everything and I can't. Okay. Hi guys.
Taking a brief intermission on ReDIScover. And we're taking a breath. Let's take one together. Ready? Breathe in. Breathe out.
Okay.
Okay, we're grounded.
So I can't take credit for this question. I actually have heard Jess ask me this question before, and then I heard it reiterated recently, and we'll link this in the show notes, but I was listening to a podcast called The Next Right Thing, and the episodes are only like 10 to 15 minutes long, so it's just a really good, I almost view it like a guided meditation a little bit, because her voice is very soothing. There's like this light piano music in the background. It's very like grounding, and you just feel very like present with what she's saying. And there was an episode literally titled, Is It Time to Move On? And I just felt like it hit me at this very, like, crucial moment. And one of the questions she posed as, like, you know, this list of things to ask yourself if you're trying to discern whether or not it's time to move on was, is anything bad going to happen to me if I move on from this thing? And Jess has asked me the same question before, just because I sometimes approach decisions from, like, an anxiety mindset, you know? And the real answer most of the time is no. Like, maybe nothing amazing is going to happen to you because you're single, but maybe something will. And either way, nothing bad is happening. Nothing bad is going to happen because you're in this phase of singleness. if anything, you're just opening yourself up to the possibility that something amazing could happen.
And that one really correlates with the is this serving me one, because if your answer is no, then having that be the follow-up question really shows you like, oh, there's space to grow here, and that could be exciting. It could just be the same and boring, but it does have option for possibility.
Yeah. In continuing with this process of growing and learning from a season of singleness, it's really about the work you're going to do within yourself to get to a place of feeling empowered by being single. And this is not always linear. There's going to be days, clearly, where it feels hard. But there'll also be some days where you feel really good. And maybe you're going to feel two different things in one day. I felt fine this morning.
Yeah, she was like, I'm riding high.
I'm like, I'm up here today. And now not so much, but I still feel like the process is doing good work within me. So I think something that I like to do more externally in this kind of phase that I'm in is to surround myself with people who are in the same season of life that I'm in or in a similar season. So, you know, not to discount my friends who are in relationships. I certainly can learn a lot from them, and I love being around them. And most of them have really amazing partners that are also individual people. But finding time to spend with my single friends is a helpful reminder that I'm not alone. I have one friend who was in kind of a difficult marriage, and she is recently single again. Well, not so recently, actually. She spent all of 2020 committing that year to singleness. Little did she know that the pandemic would help with that. But she was like, for all of 2020, I'm going to be single. I'm going to commit to that, and I'm going to grow in myself and spend time with myself that I've never had before, because she got married very young. And she is like amazing at it. And so sometimes I'm just like, tell me everything you love about being single, because I want to be inspired by it. I want to learn from her. I want to find new ways to love it for myself. So she's kind of a good guiding light. And it's good to find people like that who can kind of help you to see what could be.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that I think is really important, and I talk about this all the time, is doing a bit of mindset work. So this one, of course, you need to do when you're ready for it. So give yourself grace if you're not at the point where you can look at a happy couple. And I mean, I went through that phase too. Anytime anyone got married or was happy in a relationship, I just felt this pang of like sadness or jealousy or whatever.
Which is totally normal.
Which is normal, and it's okay to feel that way.
I apologize for my random sniffling, guys. I'm really trying to get it together.
No, you're doing great. We like to keep things real. Let yourself have those moments, but then also be aware, like, whatever you are projecting out is what you are going to receive back. So if you're able to get into the place where you're like, all right, I'm getting a little weighed down by like more of a negative outlook, why don't we just try and shift this? And when you see someone get engaged on your Facebook feed, or you see a really happy couple in the park, send out those feelings of, wow, I'm really happy for them. Like, I'm happy that they found something that's so beautiful. And wouldn't it be nice if maybe someday I got that too? Welcoming in possibilities and sending out good vibes or positive thoughts to other people. Like, the more you give those good positive thoughts and energies to others, the more you're going to receive it.
Like just mentioned before, you sometimes notice a big difference between how people react to your newfound singleness and your more long-term singleness. There's a different sort of reaction to it. But I think overall, there is the societal stigma around singleness. If you showed up to a wedding without a plus one, if you take yourself on a date and you're sitting at a restaurant alone, there's sort of this pity factor, right? Where people are like, oh, that woman's sitting all by herself.
And I'm rolling my eyes over here because
I go take myself out to eat so much. You really just have to start tuning it out. Everyone's going to have an opinion. Everyone's going to be guessing what your situation is. Just kind of debunk that stigma. Just even inviting the question. I was sitting out somewhere once and I was literally watching a football game and having a drink by myself at a bar. And my server came up to me and said, "Are you waiting for someone?" And I said, "No, it's just me." And she was like, "Oh." And she kind of like tilted her head and was like, "Well, that's kind of nice." Like, it was this bizarre thing that I was doing. And I was like, for me, I was like, this is very normal. I do this kind of stuff. I do this kind of stuff all the time. But I think she probably never stopped to think I could go sit out somewhere and watch a football game and have a drink by myself and it wouldn't be weird. It's not weird. It's only weird if you make it weird.
Don't make it weird.
Don't make it weird, guys. Take yourself on a date. And even posting things about it, you know, everyone likes to post about their relationships on social media and look at this cute thing and whatever. And I like tell my friends who are in relationships all the time, like, I want to see that because I want to be encouraged by healthy relationships. We need that content. But we also need happy single people who, you know, can speak to their experience as well.
I've seen people on TikTok make it like a little series for themselves. Like, I'm going to take myself on a date for this many days, and they make a little video of it. So then even if you are spending time alone, like, you're creating something out of that. And I think that can be really fun.
Yeah.
Go out and have fun and do this for you. Like, start dating yourself, because the more you date yourself, the more you're going to know yourself, the more you're going to know how to show up in your life and your future relationships, job, everything.
And the more you're going to know what you want.
Start getting clear about what you want in your next relationship. If you are someone who wants a relationship long term,
and you've always just sort of accepted whatever came your way, you can ask yourself the question,
why have I not ever wanted to confront what I actually want out of a relationship? Does it come down to feeling like, oh, I don't deserve someone really good? Oh, someone like that doesn't exist. It's not possible to find somebody who fits me. Like, start to question those beliefs, because I'd like to challenge you
to question if they're even true, and also
see if you are open to the fact that it could be possible to get someone who's a really phenomenal fit to you in ways that you may have not even imagined or expected.
I mentioned this journal exercise back in our episode about what we learned from dating, but just to review,
maybe write out a list of qualities of the type of person you would like to be in a relationship with. You could do physical attributes. Don't be attached to them. Or it could be qualities like they are really caring, they really show up for me, they enjoy traveling, they enjoy music, they are really compassionate, they treat other people with respect. You know, any sort of qualities like that, write them all down on a list, and then you can see which ones are so important to you. Maybe you have 1 to 3 that are deal breakers. Like, you don't want someone who does drugs. You don't want someone, if you're not into drinking, maybe you don't want someone who drinks. Maybe you want someone who has the same religious beliefs as you, things like that.
And that way, when it is time to date again, you can be more intentional with the people you're choosing to spend your time with, and you can sift through things that do not fully align with you.
Don't be attached to how it comes about. Don't be attached to getting all of the things on your list, but at least then you know what you want in your life and what you can accept, and maybe what doesn't serve you.
It's okay to be super specific or super general. We are big list people.
We love lists.
If you write it down and make a list, maybe you're going to write the word compassionate, or maybe you're going to write something like, literally this morning on my way here, and I was listening to the Next Right Thing podcast, I thought about how soothing the woman, I believe her name is Emily, who hosts it, how soothing her voice is. And I was like, oh, why do I love her voice so much? And I realized it was because it sounds like she just woke up. And then I thought how much I love a person's voice when they just wake up. I love someone's morning voice. And then I thought to myself, I'd like to find someone who has a nice morning voice or who really likes mornings and really likes coffee in the mornings. And then I started thinking about mornings, and you sort of start to have this visualization, even if you can't put a face on it. Don't attach yourself to that specific thing actually coming to be, because then you might close yourself off to someone who's equally wonderful, but
or even better than
or even better.
Thought.
But
yeah.
Just to have that kind of imagining in your mind sort of opened up my mind to the idea that I could be someone who really likes mornings and really likes coffee and really likes having morning voice conversations.
Yeah, and I really like that example that you're using, because whether or not you're into deliberate manifesting, what you're doing by having that visualization, you're activating your senses. You're thinking like, oh, the smell of the coffee and the feeling of the morning and the sight of like the sunrise. So you're
the sound of their voice.
The sound of their voice. So you're getting into that feeling space, and your brain doesn't know if that's really happening or not. Your subconscious brain doesn't really process that. It just knows the feeling. So when you can get into that space, it only attracts those things to you more. So that's why this list is such a really great exercise. Another stigma we really wanted to touch on that we both found to be very important, we got into a big discussion about this earlier, is that empowerment, being single or being a woman, is not about hating men. I think a lot of times when you are in a relationship and someone does you wrong, if you are a heterosexual woman who dates men, or anyone who dates men really, it's very easy to take the actions of one specific person and project it on the entire gender. So if you were cheated on by one man, you may start to look for evidence for other men who cheat on their partners, or that they may be abusive, or they may be disappointing. And well, this is a reality. It does exist. It is quite prominent. It's not the end-all be-all, and it's not across the board what every single human being does that's part of that demographic. So when you are moving forward into your singleness, it's great to be an independent woman, but not at the expense of trashing and hating on men as a result. You can be an independent, fulfilled, whole, amazing woman while also looking for the best qualities that you possibly can in the opposite sex. Maybe go out into the world and see if you can find examples of that in existence. Like, retrain your focus. Maybe you go for a walk in the park and you see a dad and his daughter and you're like, wow, he's really great with kids. There's an example of a good man. Or you see a guy at a store who's buying flowers for his girlfriend. You're like, there's an example of a good man in a relationship. Or you might just see a man helping an old woman across the street. There's another example. So start racking up those examples and give your brain good evidence towards more positive beliefs that you actually want to experience.
And I'm going to play devil's advocate here, because when you gave the visual of the guy buying flowers for his girlfriend, in my brain, I'm not even kidding, this is what my brain did. I thought maybe he's buying them because he did something wrong and he's trying to make up for it.
Yeah.
Because my brain, I literally dated a guy who told me, I'm not kidding, Kristen, everyone cheats or wishes that they could. Ugh. Every guy cheats or wishes that he could.
Yeah.
Every guy thinks about cheating, whether it's with a specific person or just in general, or they actually do it. And for years, this is the thought pattern that has exacerbated itself in my head. And I'm like, wait a minute. When did this become truth? Just because somebody said it to me once and it stuck? So it's also about retraining your mind to not go the cynical route and to give people the benefit of the doubt. Because maybe that dad in the park playing with his daughter is a good man. Playing with his daughter in the park, and he's taking that time to spend with her,
right,
to grow their relationship. And that is a good quality of a good person.
So take that quality as what it is and don't give the person the backstory.
Yeah.
Just be like, okay,
exactly.
There's evidence of goodness.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Don't assume that the guy buying flowers at the grocery store is doing it because he screwed up and he's making up for it. Maybe he's doing it because she's had a really hard week.
Or maybe he just missed her while she was at work today.
Don't assume bad intention, because then you're setting yourself up to have a cynical view of relationships and of men. And I'm saying this because I do it. I'm telling you this because I'm guilty of it.
I have done it as well. A lot of this episode is about really redirecting your focus and shifting beliefs, which it's hard work, guys, but it's good work to do.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we're there. You guys, we're there. Now you have all this free space to love on you. And that's so fun.
And this can be at any point in your life.
Yes.
All you have to do is decide that you're there. That's it.
I also think it's important to note that whether you are single or in a relationship or whatever phase of life you're in, these things should be habits.
Yes. As someone who's in a relationship, I try to do these things very consistently. And when I was single, I tried to do these things very consistently.
It's all about just filling up your cup so you can be present in your life for the people in your life, regardless of that, if that's your friends or your family or your partner or yourself or whomever. So you can show up at your job, so you can show up in your life.
I think the best way to look at it is to look at this as a fun project, and you're building and creating your life for you. You're not doing this for anyone else. You're not doing this with the ulterior motive to get a relationship. You're not doing this to impress a family member. You're doing this to make yourself feel the most fulfilled that you can possibly feel. It's really all about your inner relationship more than anything.
So earlier, as we were kind of fleshing all of this out, Jess said something, or did I say it? I don't remember who said it.
Yeah,
I was just like, write it down, because she said, why are you waiting for someone to give you what you want? And I was like, boom, mic drop. And that has been this week's episode of ReDIScover. Just kidding.
Right?
Seriously, why are you waiting? If you want flowers, buy yourself flowers. If you want to go on this trip to this place, go on the trip. If you can afford to go, go. If you want to go out to eat, take yourself out to eat. Or try and find friends to do these things with you. You don't have to wait for a relationship to have the things that you want. If you want to buy yourself the giant heart-shaped chocolate box on Valentine's Day,
do it.
do it. So I think it's really important to be mindful of those places where you find yourself brought up short and hesitating to do a thing because you feel like it's a relationship thing. And then ask yourself why you feel it like it's a relationship thing. Is it because society told you it's a relationship thing? Or is it because it's actually a thing that's reserved for the confines of a committed relationship? Those are two different things. So I say, buy yourself the flowers, go out to eat.
When you're in a relationship, you can do them again. There's no limit on how many times you can receive flowers, or you can go out to dinner or do these things. Why wait for someday when you can just do the things today?
Because then I can go, you know what I would love to do today? I want to go to the farmer's market. I want to buy myself some flowers. And then I'm going to get this book that I've been wanting to read and go sit at my favorite coffee shop and read my book for a while. And then maybe I'm going to go for a walk this evening and watch the sunset. And then maybe I'm going to take myself out to dinner. And that's a whole day. That's like Saturday, done and dusted. All for me.
Yeah, because you deserve it.
And I can do that with myself, and I can think about all of those things and visualize myself doing them and visualize enjoying them. And then you realize I don't need another person to enjoy the sunset, because watching the sunset will, A, give me time alone to listen to my own thoughts, but B, I'm someone who like definitely feels closer to God when I'm outside in nature. So give me some time to like build my spiritual life.
Being on your own schedule when you are single is a really big gift, and that is part of singleness that you do want to embrace, because someday when you do have a partner and if you decide to have kids, like, your time is committed to a lot of other people. So when you are in the single phase, just enjoy it and just embrace having freedom.
So we sort of wanted to round out this singleness journey into empowerment with some resources, some low-hanging fruit, some grab-and-go things that you guys can...
As we always do.
Yeah, so that you guys can really have some practical, tangible ways to start on this journey.
Or continue.
Or continue on this journey for yourself. The first thing is that there are so many resources for this if you need ideas. I literally typed in on Pinterest the words, take yourself on a date. And so many things came up, and the first thing that I read was this 10 Dates to Take Yourself On article from this blog called Put the Kettle On. It's a Canadian blog. She's really cute. And she not only gives you like 10 ideas for dates to take yourself on, but also why dating yourself should be at the top of your self-care priorities and how to date yourself. She writes The Art of Mastering the Solo Date. And she talks about how, dedicating the time, putting it in your calendar, don't procrastinate, prioritize it, things like that.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really important note is when you are planning things like this, put them in your calendar. And it's like the Grinch movie where he writes out his whole schedule.
Yeah. Oh, I think about that all the time. Like, dinner with me? I can't cancel that again.
Yeah, exactly. So write down, like, dinner with me 6 p.m. on Tuesday, and don't cancel it.
What will I wear? Yeah, and I used to do that when I was in college and living in Orlando. I would drive to the coast and watch the sunrise and then spend the day at the beach and, like, bring a book with me, and I'd make a whole day of it. But I'd put it in my planner, like, this is my day off, beach day, so that I wouldn't make other plans by accident, or I wouldn't schedule other things, because I really wanted to prioritize that time to just go be at the beach with myself all day. So she just gives some really good tips and ideas for dates to take yourself on. Her first one was bookstore and a coffee. Like taking yourself on a date to a coffee shop or to a bookstore and having a coffee while you read. Taking a cooking class was another one.
That's fun.
I think that would be really fun and a great way to meet other people too. And just to mention one more, I'm not going to list all 10 because then you guys won't go read the article. Another one was a spa day. So just like a really relaxing day. And honestly, on this page, that was the first article that popped up, but there are so many, like 15 solo date ideas, why you need to date yourself first. There's so many resources. This is not a new concept. I think we're really, really starting to be more mindful of the relationships we have with ourselves. So that's a great resource to start with.
Something that I've done in the past too when going through this process is going to therapy. I went through a breakup in 2013 that I mentally struggled with for over a year until I got in my next relationship, and then all of those same issues bled into that next relationship and actually got a lot worse. So during that second relationship, I made it a priority to make sure I went to therapy after to get help. And that was the first time I ever really went. Therapy is such a gift if you are able to go, just to help you learn tools to help you in the future. And if you have a lot of recurring relationship patterns, it might be a really great thing to take on for yourself. It could even be categorized as a self-care practice or something you're doing for self-love, because it's only helping you grow more so you can show up more in the future as the version of yourself that you want to be, like the highest version of yourself. There are coaches that are specifically designed for single women or people who are wanting to learn more about relationships. Like, take it on as a project maybe to learn about why successful relationships work, whether you work with a coach or you just look up like official studies or you read books about successful relationships. Like, start fueling your mind with newer outlooks and newer approaches you can take to your relationships. Amy Young, who is on YouTube and Instagram, her current focus is patriarchal deprogramming and stepping into your feminine power, but her original focus on her YouTube channel was dating and relationships, and her perspectives changed my life and just helped me feel empowered. She helped me get to that empowered stage, and once I got there, I was like flying, soaring through it. So she's an amazing resource, especially if you're in a really tough spot mentally. Just binge her YouTube videos when you're getting ready in the morning, because they are really great. I have 2 book recommendations as well. So first, I've mentioned her again a bunch of times, Louise Hay. Her book, You Can Heal Your Life. She does really, really deep belief work, and there's an actual workbook that goes along with the novel itself that I have spent time on. You know, one of my self-love journaling nights, I went through this workbook, and it feels so cleansing and revealing, and you just are able to really see where your mind and your subconscious patterns are at. So highly recommend Louise Hay. This is more of like a manifesting type book, but I don't know. I really feel like it might be applicable to everyone. It's just a new perspective if you're open to it. There's this book called Love Will Find You by Catherine Alice, and it's kind of about shifting your perspective and your energy towards love, and it made a huge shift for me, and I actually gave it to one of my friends in Florida, and she got into a relationship very soon after she read it. It's a very powerful book. She gives you a lot of like tangible things to do, like activities, and her perspectives are phenomenal.
So whether you are sitting on your couch right now eating Ben & Jerry's and crying along with me as I have cried my way through this episode, or whether you are feeling really empowered as a single person and you feel like you've done a lot of great work and you are feeling fulfilled in your single life, or you're somewhere in the middle like me.
Or if you're someone who's just listening to this and it doesn't really apply, but you feel inspired to take on more of a self-love journey.
Yeah. If this doesn't resonate with you and your journey right now as far as singleness goes, but you feel like you've been neglecting your own self-care, this is your opportunity to start taking care of yourself. And if you can think of somebody else who is single right now, send it along to them. And we would love to grow our little family where I cry in front of all of you every week.
Also, just to make a note, I think crying is an energetic release, and I think it's a really, really amazing, powerful thing that we can do. So never feel ashamed to cry, whether it be Kristen or whoever I'm talking to. Crying is actually really good for you because it's releasing any stored energy.
Yeah. And I know I've said this before, but I am really thankful that we have created this space where all of you are so allowing and accepting, and you just resonate so much with the things that we talk about, and we get messages all the time that really just make us feel gratified and encouraged to keep doing this. So thank you for making this a safe space for me to be vulnerable and authentic as I continue to learn how to do that.
Yes.
So
we are all just learning how to do life together.
Yes.
And thank you for being part of our journey.
yeah, thanks for doing life with us.
Yes.
Go buy yourself some flowers
Yeah.
and chocolate.
Absolutely.
Or a new car, whatever. I mean,
Whatever is coming up for you.
whatever's coming up. Yeah. So next week, we're going to bring you something a little more whimsical and fun and lighthearted to round out February's love theme for ReDIScover. So we hope you'll be back here next Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. to wrap up the month all about relationships and love. We are continuing on with part 2 of our favorite Disney couples episodes. You guys loved the first one we did so much. We will link it in the show notes. It was all about our favorite royal Disney couples. You guys really loved that episode, so we're going to talk about all of our favorite Disney couples from live action movies. So we're going to be talking a little bit of Star Wars, a little bit of Marvel, a little bit of some other things. So we hope you'll come back for that as kind of a lighter, more fun way to round out February.
Thank you so much for listening today. We hope that you were able to take something away from this episode. Reminder to just share the episode if it resonated with you. Share it with your friends. Share it on Instagram stories. We always repost them. And we're so excited to talk to you next week. Talk to you soon.
Bye!
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of ReDIScover.
Please subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening. Your reviews are what keep us going, and we'd love to hear from you.
Join us every Tuesday for a new conversation, and let us know what you think we should talk about next.
Follow us on Instagram at positively.kristen and at jessicafay508. And check out Jess's blog at theroadjesstraveled with 1l.com.
Until next time,
Stay frumpy!